Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Section 2. The most venerable one. Parenthetically, honzon. Section 2, Chapter 5, the honzon of the essential section representing the eternally imperishable Pure Land. So, welcome. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. Listen to the wording, this translation. The honzon of the essential section representing the eternally imperishable Pure Land. One of the things I always say, Buddhism is about the mind. Where is the Pure Land? In the mind, yes? How is it imperishable? Because it is the very state of the formation of everything that we call life. It is the universe itself. We are but a manifestation of some of that potential. And we manifest in a way, in a form that emerges a mind that can be aware of and experience this very engine of life as it functions, as it works, as it instantiates and moves through time. Not an instantiation that is static, permanent, but a process that is constantly evolving and changing. That is the actual experience of life. And when we don't know that, when we don't know that intellectually, cellularly, when we don't understand that with our mind properly, we suffer because we misperceive the whole project, process, momentum of life. When we're in it, it's elation, it's amazing, it's enthralling, it's healthy. It is the truth. But constantly we're trying to identify it, which is a way of saying stop, which it won't. Do you actually believe you can force the entire universe to halt? That's what we do constantly, samsarically. We try to halt and hold and possess and maintain and make permanent. It's insane. Buddha is our perception of this never static process of life. How exciting. Yes. This eternally imperishable Pure Land simply means that very perception in mind. Eternal because it has no beginning or end. It's a function of the process that we experience time and space at all. So let's get into it. During the 50 years or so since he attained perfect enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and preached the Flower Garland Sutra, showing himself in the Lotus repository world until his death in the Sala Grove. Shakyamuni Buddha preached many sutras. In them he revealed various pure lands, such as the Lotus repository world of the Flower Garland Sutra, the experience of the law of Myoho Renge Kyo. But the Kigan Sutra, that first teaching, the Avatamsaka, the Flower Garland Sutra, as it's also known, was coming out of meditation and understanding an expression of what it's like to be there. But nobody had gone through his 6 or 7 years of research and experience in order to develop their mind to understand what he was spouting. They just looked at him like confused animals. Huh? What are you talking about? So he only taught the Avatamsaka Sutra for a couple weeks. Records vary, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but not very long. Certainly not very long when you consider that the other sermons he taught for 8, 10, 12 years at a time. Yeah? He figured out very quickly. He was enlightened. Oh, crap. I got ahead of myself. Let me back off and take people through the steps similar to what I had to go through to evolve my thinking so that they can now grasp. And so he culminates with the Lotus Sutra, which is a much more developed teaching because it includes not only the Pure Land, that experience of enlightenment, but how to get there immediately, perfectly. He revealed various pure lands, such as the Lotus repository world of the Flower Garland Sutra, the Kigan Kyo, right? The pure land of mystic glorification in the Mystic Glorification Sutra, the Mitsugan Kyo, the 3 pure lands revealed in the Beholding the Stupa of Treasure chapter of the Lotus Sutra, and the 4 lands in the Sutra for resolving doubts concerning the age of the semblance Dharma, the Zobo Ketsugi Kyo, right? All these different teachings. These were all provisional lands shown in this world of impermanence, which goes through a cycle of 4 periods, the kalpas of construction, continuance, destruction, and emptiness. Just like that's the whole process of life. The entire universe works this way. Why would our lives be any different? Or anything that we perceive in our lives be any different? This is the process of life. It arises, it endures in some form through, although constantly changing, until it inevitably just keeps changing into decay and nothing. Non-instantiation, non-manifestation. Just goes right back to just energy. Potential. Any possible manifestation without definition is just potential. The tendency is to say at rest, but there is no such thing as rest. There is only potential, unmanifested. They represent paradises such as that of the temporary land, the land of non-hindrance, the land of tranquil light, 3 of the 4 lands mentioned in the previous chapter, or the land of bliss of the Buddha of infinite life, land of the emerald of medicine master Buddha in the east, or the pure land of the mystic glorification of the great sun Buddha. Do you see how these are all descriptive of experiences in the mind? It's storytelling for the purpose of expanding your awareness of how the mind works. This is Buddhism. The lords of these lands are transformations of Shakyamuni Buddha. The lords, they're the explicators. They are the mind fathoming tools of Shakyamuni, a man who has attained that insight, that Buddha, the Buddha. Therefore, when Shakyamuni Buddha, the origin of these transformed Buddhas, dies, they will all die because they're all personages, examples, stories by this one man who has given to us these different ways of understanding the mind, which we all have. But the teachers of those aspects, the personages of those aspects, will no longer exist because they are conjured from the mind of Shakyamuni. And therefore, when Shakyamuni, the man, expires, is extinct, that teaching and the mind that teaches it, gone. They will all die. Likewise, their lands will disappear. But not from your mind, from his storytelling, conjuring mind to assist yours in attaining those insights, little enlightenments, right? Now, however, when the eternal Buddha was revealed in the essential section of the Lotus Sutra, this world of endurance, this Saha world, became the eternal Pure Land, indestructible even by the three calamities of conflagration, flooding, and strong winds, which are said to destroy the world. It transcends the four periods of cosmic change, the kalpas of construction, continuance, destruction, and emptiness. So once Shakyamuni and his teaching methodology is gone, that doesn't mean the world is gone. That doesn't even mean the land of possibilities in the mind for Buddha instantiation is gone. But that's not pointed out until the essential teachings of the Lotus Sutra. That is where the bequeathal happens. That is where all of the teachings of Shakyamuni's lifetime are bequeathed to the bodhisattvas of the earth. You and me. It's in the Lotus Sutra. So he's just deconstructing that to make it obvious. Shakyamuni Buddha, the preacher of this Pure Land, has never died in the past, nor will he be born in the future, because we're not talking really about Shakyamuni Buddha, we're talking about Buddha. Again, this translation is tricky. He exists forever throughout the past, present, and future. Buddha exists throughout past, present, and future. He refers to a man. He does not. There's this weird middle ground in this translation that doesn't seem to understand itself. But you understand. All those who receive his guidance are one with this eternal Buddha. Finally, it is because of each of our minds is equipped with the 3,000 modes of existence and the three factors, namely all living beings, the land in which they live, and the five elements of living beings, matter, perception, conception, volition, and consciousness, that we can perceive this Buddha. This truth was not made clear in the first 14 chapters of the theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra, Perhaps it was because the time was not ripe at this stage of preaching the Lotus Sutra, and the capacity of the comprehension on the part of the listeners was not yet sufficient. Over and over again, we confront this, right? The heart of the essential section of the Lotus Sutra, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, an absolute conviction in the 5-character title of the Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, was not transmitted even to the most trusted disciples, such as Bodhisattva Manjushri or Medicine King, and certainly not the lower-ranking bodhisattvas. Instead, the Buddha called out numerous bodhisattvas from underground, for whom he expounded it during the preaching of the 8 chapters following the 15th chapter in the essential section of the Lotus Sutra, and entrusted them with the task of spreading it in the latter age of degeneration. Well, this is a teaching we've read over and over and over again, right? Who are these bodhisattvas from underground, the bodhisattvas of the earth? That's an analogy, a story, a facility with which to express the future. When things come from under the ground, they grow. They grow and they manifest in the sunlight, just like a flower, like a lotus flower. This is you and me, my friend. We are those future bodhisattvas. And it is on our watch that we must understand this teaching and promote it, promulgate it, spread the seeds as a lotus does. When it blossoms, it pops out its pod and puts seeds in the ground for future bodhisattva. The most venerable depiction of this transmission of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo from the eternal Buddha to his original disciple is, quote, suspended in the sky above the eternal Buddha Shakyamuni's Saha world is a stupa of treasures, in which Shakyamuni Buddha and the Buddha of many treasures sit to the left and right of Myoho Renge Kyo. Remind you of anything? They are waited on by 4 bodhisattvas, including superior practices, Jogyo, an embodiment that Nichiren feels he impersonates or personalizes, representing the original disciples of the eternal Buddha called upon from underground. 4 more bodhisattvas, including Manjushri, Maitreya, take lower seats as followers. Other great and minor bodhisattvas, those converted by the Buddha in the theoretical section, and those who came from other lands, resemble numerous people sitting on the ground and looking up at court nobles. Also lined up on the ground are Buddhas in manifestation, who gathered together from all worlds in the universe in praise of the Buddha's preaching, representing provisional Buddhas in their respective land. What are provisional Buddhas? They're teachers of the law. You and I are provisional Buddhas for others as we course the world as bodhisattvas. And everybody is, whether they know it or not. And that's the difference. We need to spread the awakening to it. Awakening, enlightenment. Turn the light on in the attic. That's our job. No most venerable depiction such as this was revealed anywhere else by Shakyamuni Buddha during more than 50 years of his preaching in this life. Though he spent 8 years preaching the Lotus Sutra, the scene was limited to the preaching in the sky above Mount Sacred Eagle, recounted in 8 chapters. During the 2 millenniums after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha, the ages of the true Dharma and the semblance Dharma, some worshipped Shakyamuni Buddha, accompanied by Kashyapa and Ananda, as described in the Hinayana Sutras. But we don't worship in Buddhism, not if you understand Buddhism. Others worshipped him, accompanied by such bodhisattvas as Manjushri and Samantabhadra, as he appeared in the quasi-Mahayana Sutras, the Nirvana Sutra, or the theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra. Many wooden statues and portraits of Shakyamuni Buddha as he preached Hinayana or quasi-Mahayana Sutras, but statues and portraits of the eternal Shakyamuni Buddha revealed in the duration of the life of the Tathagata chapter of the Lotus Sutra were never made. Now, in the beginning of the latter age of degeneration, is it not the time that such statues and portraits are made for the first time? I question that translation. What I would say is that in this case, Nichiren is talking about this mandala, and that the statue, the portrait, is not a statue or portrait of a likeness of Shakyamuni Buddha, which Shakyamuni cautioned against and told very specifically, do not follow me, right? We get back to this constant thing. Don't follow the person, follow the law. So the object, the portrait, the statue, is not of Shakyamuni. It has to be a representation. It must be a representation of the eternal, the Buddha-ness, the concept of awakening the mind to perceive the process of life itself. That's not a person. That's a law. How do I put that law into the samsaric realm, the physical realm, to be a focal point for humans to instantiate the enlightenment from within their own minds? That's the honzon. That's the ultimate honzon, the goal honzon. And what results is the mandala you see behind me. A conceptual, legal, if you will, form of the law of the process of life, whose central invocation is Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That very teaching, that very law. Section 3, Propagating the True Dharma, which is chapter 6, the Lotus Sutra for the Latter Age. And, yeah, can we start it? Yeah, this isn't a very long video. We'll start it. It's a good transition. It starts with a question, of course, made by Nichiren, no less, but because he's setting up an information ground, right? A teaching ground. Question: you have said that for 2,000 years during the age of the true Dharma and the semblance Dharma, scholar monks and the so-called 4 ranks of bodhisattvas who guided the people after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha built temples and pagodas for various Buddhas, such as the Buddha of Infinite Life, the Great Sun Buddha, and Medicine Master Buddha. Some of them built temples and pagodas dedicated to Shakyamuni Buddha, preaching the Hinayana, Quasi-Mahayana, and pre-Lotus Sutras, or the theoretical section, the first half of the Lotus Sutra. None of them in the 3 lands of India, China, and Japan. Neither a king nor his subjects, however, has ever revered the true honzon, revealed in the duration of the life of the Tathagata chapter of the Lotus Sutra, the eternal Buddha, with 4 bodhisattvas waiting on him. It has startled me, and I am just confused because it has never been said by anyone before. I ask you to explain it once more, as I wish to hear it in detail. Okay, caught everybody off guard. So I will restate in different words what I was explaining about the various teachings, the essential versus the provisional, especially within the Lotus Sutra, to get everybody's mind around the proper teachings and why the honzon, the ultimate venerable one, is that which we experience in the mind when we invoke it. Nowhere else. No person. Answer. The Lotus Sutra consists of 8 facets and 28 chapters. 4 steps of teachings, sutras of the first 4 tastes, if you'll remember from previous stories and sutras, were preached before the Lotus Sutra and the Nirvana Sutra after it. These lifetime preachings of the Buddha can be bound into one sutra. Those preached before the Lotus Sutra, from the flower garland which was preached upon his attainment of Buddhahood at Buddha Gaya, to the Great Wisdom Sutra, comprise the preface. The Sutra of Infinite Meaning, the Lotus Sutra, and the Sutra of Meditation on Universal Bodhisattva, the 10 facets in all, serve as the main discourse, while the Nirvana Sutra constitutes the epilogue. The 10 facets of the main discourse. Now, it's important it's a restating, but it's stated in a different way. The culminating location of Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings are the Threefold Lotus Sutra. The 10 facets of the main discourse, can further be divided into 3 parts: the Sutra of Infinite Meaning and the first introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra constitute the preface. The 15 1/2 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, from the second chapter, Expedience, to the 19-line verse in the 17th chapter, Variety of Merits, mark the main discourse. The 11 1/2 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, from the last half of the Variety of Merits chapter, where the 4 stages of conviction during the Shakyamuni's lifetime are preached, to the 28th and final chapter of the sutra, plus the 1 facet of the Sutra of Meditation on Universal Sage Bodhisattva, make up the epilogue. Furthermore, the 10 facets of the Threefold Lotus Sutra, Sutra of Infinite Meaning, Lotus Sutra, and Sutra of Meditation on Universal Sage Bodhisattva, can be divided into 2 sections, theoretical and essential, each of which contains a preface, a main discourse, and an epilogue. First, in the theoretical section, the Sutra of Infinite Meaning and the first introduction chapter of the Lotus Sutra comprise the preface. The 8 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, from the second chapter, Expedience, to the 9th chapter, Assurance of Future Buddhahood, inclusive, represent the main discourse. And the 5 chapters, from the 10th chapter, The Teacher of the Dharma, to the 14th chapter, Peaceful Practices, comprise the epilogue. The Lord who preached this teaching is Shakyamuni Buddha, who had attained Buddhahood for the first time in this world, under the Bodhi tree at Buddha Gaya. He preached the truth of 1,000 aspects contained in 100 realms, which had never been revealed before. It is the true Dharma, which transcends all the sutras which had been preached, pre-Lotus Sutras, are now being preached, Sutra of Infinite Meaning, and are to be preached, such as the Nirvana. It is the innermost intention of the Buddha, which is difficult to have confidence in and comprehend. Inquiring into the past, we find a few who encounter this true Dharma, as stated in the 17th chapter, The Parable of a Magic City. When great universal wisdom Buddha was a king, Shakyamuni Buddha, his 16th prince, sowed the seed of Buddhahood among the people. With the help of the pre-Lotus sutras, such as the Flower Garland Sutra, some were able to attain enlightenment afterwards by germinating the seed planted at the time of great universal wisdom Buddha, cultivating it to maturity to bear fruit. This, however, was not the true intent of the Buddha. Just as a poison might show its effects on some people without their knowledge, only a certain people does the seed of Buddhahood have a chance to germinate and grow to maturity without the help of the Lotus Sutra. Remember, the aim of Buddhism was for any and all sentient beings and insentient to have a vehicle by which they could instantiate Buddha-ness, enlightenment. It should be universal. That was the point. So the early teachings were developing the mind, and some people with keen capacity might be able to, with work and in their lives, manifest some form of enlightenment, some degree of enlightenment, maybe full enlightenment, but it would be a small number. It wouldn't be a universal answer. The aim of Shakyamuni Buddha to be born in this world was to gradually lead the two kinds of Hinayana sages, called the two vehicles, the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, learning and realization, and ordinary people to the Lotus Sutra by the way of the pre-Lotus sutras, whereby the seed may germinate and grow to bear the fruit of Buddhahood. What he would eventually teach, the Lotus Sutra, was not only, here's your bag of seeds, good luck, but how to plant that seed, how to nurture that seed, how to feed that seed, what the proper soil was, what the proper light was, so on and so forth. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, okay, you know all that seed and planting and all that nurturing and all that stuff? All you need to do is invoke it. And all of that just happens. Nobody would have believed that then. It took for them to understand the entirety of the process as much as could be understood, to then have confidence in the ability to invoke it. Otherwise, it would look like magic, and that wouldn't lead them anywhere. They'd be praying and waiting and worshiping, instead of realizing that it's in the mind, in your own mind, that this occurs. Do you see the capacity of the people, why that's so important? The capacity of the mind that listens and experiences. We can do this instantly. That is our great benefit, but it's also our great loss, because there's a tendency not to respect it or to cast it aside easily. This is the kalpa of degeneration, after all. Describes the situation immensely well. All of those men and gods who listened to Shakyamuni Buddha in his lifetime preached the 8 chapters, the main discourse of the theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra. Some received the seed of Buddhahood upon hearing a phrase or a verse and nurtured it until they attained Buddhahood. Others attained Buddhahood through the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, complemented by the Hinayana and Provisional Mahayana Sutras, upon arriving at a time when the Sutra of Meditation on Universal Sage Bodhisattva and the Nirvana Sutra were preached. Some people who need more convincing had to study more than simply practice Namu Myoho Renge Kyo to have the confidence to reach this simple teaching, this invocation of Buddha-ness. I would count myself as one of those. I had to go beyond the Lotus Sutra and educate myself with the Virmalakirti, the Lankavatara, the Hinayana, the words of Buddha, the on and on and on. And it happened very quickly. As soon as I started reading more broadly what Shakyamuni had been teaching throughout his lifetime, it kept pointing me back to every sentence of the Lotus Sutra that I had read but hadn't fully comprehended. And I laughed out loud many times. Oh, that's of course. Why didn't I get it when I read the Lotus Sutra? I wasn't ready. So I had to read and research other things. And it made the Lotus Sutra bright and clear. No longer any doubts. Boom, confidence. That's what's needed. So maybe you get it out of the Lotus Sutra. Wonderful. But if you don't, or if you've been searching around, don't feel bad about yourself. Your path required certain karmic obstacles to be reshaped, used, put away, whatever. There's some organizing that had to happen in your momentum so that this became abundantly clear. Good for you. This is why Shakyamuni said it himself. You have to study broadly all of the Buddhist scholarship, even non-Buddhist scholarship. So long as it's scholarship, not just drivel, whatever you require, you will find in your life to clear up and get your mind to the point where enlightenment is obvious. And that is in the Lotus Sutra, in the Myoho Renge Kyo. Or then, after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha, during the age of the true Dharma, that of the semblance Dharma, or in the age of the latter age of degeneration, these men are like those of Shakyamuni's lifetime who were able to attain Buddhahood through the preaching of the pre-Lotus Sutras. There were. Not everybody, it wasn't universal, but there were people capable of getting there with the capacity that they had available to them. We're all different, right? Moreover, 14 chapters in the essential teaching section can be regarded as one sutra with 3 parts: the preface, the main discourse, and the epilogue. The first half of the 15th chapter, appearance of Bodhisattva from under the ground, is the prologue. This is what's going to happen. The second half of the 15th chapter, the 16th chapter, the duration of the life of the Tathagata, and the first half of the following chapter, the variety of merits, a chapter and 2 halves in all, make up the main discourse. The remainder constitutes the epilogue. And in fact, it reads this way. The Lord who preaches here is the eternal Buddha, not Shakyamuni Buddha, who attained Buddhahood for the first time in this world under the Bodhi tree in Buddha Gaya. That is an essential point that Nichiren bases his entire strength of conviction in the Lotus Sutra and this mandala. That what we're reading in the lifespan of the Tathagata isn't a man describing his life as an enlightened being. This is Shakyamuni stepping aside and saying, you, all of us, bodhisattvas from under the earth, future bodhisattvas, will realize that Buddha is in the conscious mind, has nothing to do with me, Shakyamuni. And as that conscious mind, that condition of mind, that Buddha-ness, I am stating this to you, I being your own mind. And in that very play of words, a description takes form of an invocation. And we read after that, if you'll recall from the Lotus Sutra, when he says embrace, read, recite, he also says invoke. In different translations, it's recite. it's invoke, it's, of course, it says write, disseminate. The tongue is involved in here, right? The example of the tongue reaching into the sky. Our tongues are involved in invoking this Buddha-ness. It's no mistake that he's talking about something predating Buddhism, the invocation of a law, of a condition. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Accordingly, what is preached here differs from what was preached previously as clearly as heaven and earth. That is to say, it is revealed here that all living beings in the 10 realms, as well as the world in which they live, manifest themselves to be eternal, or to be of the eternal, because Buddha is the condition of life. And only with a mind can we experience and observe that. It comes close to revealing the truth of the 3,000 existences contained in one thought, with only an extremely thin bamboo film separating them. Interesting. That earthly obstacle still there, that thin bamboo film. So what would Nichiren do but put the law on that film to direct it directly back into the mind of the invoker, the consciousness of Buddha. Compared to this eternal Buddha and his teaching preached in the essential section, those teachings preached in the theoretical section, the Pre-Lotus Sutras, the Sutra of Infinite Meaning, the Nirvana Sutra, namely all the sutras preached prior to, at the same time as, and after the Lotus Sutra, are easy to believe and understand because they're all about stories and rules. Very samsaric. It is because they are provisional teachings adjusted to meet the understanding and the convictions, the beliefs, and comprehension of the unenlightened, while what is preached in the essential section transcends them all and is difficult to believe and comprehend because it adheres to the true intent of Shakyamuni Buddha, to bring you to Buddha. Anyone. It's already there. There is another triple division culminating in the essential section, how you want to interpret the Threefold Lotus. Innumerable sutras, beginning with the Lotus Sutra, expounded during the time of the ancient great universal wisdom Buddha, those preached by Shakyamuni Buddha during 50-some years of his lifetime, including the Flower Garland Sutra, 14 chapters of the theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra, and the Nirvana Sutra, as well as those preached by Buddhas in all the worlds in the universe in the past, at present, and future, are the preface to the great Dharma of 5 characters, hidden in the lines of the 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, which is essentially what I was describing earlier. The duration of the life of the Tathagata. Because we are the duration of the life of the Tathagata. The Tathagata is the mind state of Buddha. Compared to the 1 and 2/2 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, the 16th chapter, the second half of the preceding chapter, and the first half of the following chapter, which comprise the main discourse according to this division, all other sutras may be called Hinayana teachings, false teachings, teachings that do not lead to Buddhahood. You could call them that because they are provisional. They are teachings to prepare. False not because they're untrue, but false because they don't lead directly to instantiating Buddha. Those who listen to these expedient teachings have little virtue and much illusion, because they're still stuck in samsara. They're samsarically based teachings. They are immature in thinking, poor in heart, and solitary. Like birds and beasts, they do not know the existence of the eternal Buddha, who is their father. You hear the language? Life force, the universe, life, the engine of life, the universe, from time without beginning to time without end. As far as we know, everything we experience from time, space is within this universe, right? So it is within this universe that your life is manifest. So it is not a stretch of wording to say that this universe is our Father. In a very sexist way, our father and mother, our union of father and mother. It is the universe that spawns you and I, you and me. Keep messing that up. As stated above, even the perfect teachings of the Pre-Lotus Sutra and the theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra do not really lead to Buddhahood. How much less of a possibility do Hinayana-like sutras like the Great Sun Buddha Sutra have? How much less chance of success do the seven schools such as the Flower Garland, Qigong, the True Word, Shingon, established by commentators and masters have? Generally speaking, they are within the limit of Pitaka, common, and distinct teachings. They're just governance, ways of behavior, but they don't open the door to Buddha-ness. They're just fingers pointing, right? Strictly speaking, they are the same as Pitaka and common teachings. Although they preach exquisite teachings, they do not discuss the sowing, nurturing, and cultivation of the seed of Buddhahood. As a result, the Buddhahood preached in them is equivalent to the annihilation of body and soul sought by Hinayana sages. And there is no such a thing as a soul in Buddhism, so how did that get into this dialogue? If that's part of Hinayana, then they're desperately off the mark, right? This is what Tendai meant when he pointed out the inconsistency of guidance in the Pre-Lotus Sutras. This is like a royal princess who is made pregnant by a beast. Her child is considered inferior even to the lowest caste. Let us put this aside for now. The theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra consists of 14 chapters, of which 8 chapters, 2 through 9, serve as the main discourse. At first glance, these 8 chapters seem to be preached primarily for the 2 categories of Hinayana sages called the Starvaka and Pratyeka Buddhas, right? There's a lot of focus early on in the Lotus Sutra about these Ichantika, these early practitioners of Buddhism who are stubbornly adhering arrogantly to something they had not achieved but thought they had achieved, right? Those are the words of the Lotus Sutra. And only secondarily for bodhisattvas and ordinary people. On careful examination, they seem primarily reserved for ordinary people after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha in the age of the true Dharma, that of the semblance Dharma, and the latter age of degeneration. These chapters are aimed especially at those people living in the beginning of the latter age of degeneration. Question: what's your proof of that? And I think we'll leave his answer to the next video. Can you feel the tension? Oh, this is good stuff. Thank you for being here, participating. If you're getting anything out of this, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. That helps us a lot. Right? We need to grow this Sangha. We need to do what Shakyamuni told us we need to do. We need to promulgate this. That we're changing the world. Believe it. One person at a time. My patrons, you guys are golden. Those of you who help support this Sangha, you're amazing people. I'm sure that your lives will grow commensurately from this cause you're making. Keep your practice strong. Be kind to yourselves. Take care of your health. And I can't wait to see you in the next one, where we hear what Nichiren has to say to this. And more. All right. That's it for now. Bye for now.